Salutations, everybody. It is Maddie here today with episode 118 of the H.A.M Radio Podcast.
And it's me, Karak, with ACG.
It's just us right now. No Lone. He's off being a marsupial. We have no idea what he's doing.
I don't really like the threesomes anyway. It's just better with yeah. What did he say he's he's been traveling, right?
Yeah, traveling for work, something along those lines. So that's where Lone is. We don't have a guest this week, so it's just a little Maddie, Karak. Lots of ranting is going to happen inevitably now. But anyway, thank you guys for tuning in to this episode. We've been seeing a lot of really consistent viewership and listeners over the past, really the entire year so far, but it's just been really ramping up lately. So thank you guys so much for supporting the show.
Yeah.
If you'd like to support the show more, feel free to donate to the Patreon. You can get early access to the podcast, be registered to become a potential guest. So anyway, we got lots of news. We're also doing viewer questions this time around, so we're trying to bring that back a little bit. That'll be at the end of the podcast as per usual. But it's going to be, instead of just a segment called viewer questions, instead we're going to separate it by topics. So now let's get into the first piece of news. Take-Two ideally wants at least one AAA game out per year. And Take-Two owns a lot of really fantastic franchises that we like. They own, I think, Mafia, Grand Theft Auto, Red Dead,
XCOM,
there you go. There's one. Borderlands, been talking about that lately. BioShock. They own a lot. But since they own a lot, are we to fear that they're trying to get one of this sum of them all out each year? I mean, here's the thing. They get NBA 2K out every year. So it's
That's
like,
true.
Is that, are they talking beyond that? I'd imagine.
Yeah, but I mean, it depends. How many? I wish we knew exactly how many teams they had. Because like football, sports, those kind of things, like those aren't too hard, right? I mean, it's same. You're regurgitating the same animations most of the time,
not.
But yeah, or we're not, or we're having brand new everything.
New AI. I saw that in NHL 18, and I was like, bullshit.
It still knows where the fucking goal is. So yeah, you have that. It'll be interesting to see what their idea, because I think we sometimes, even you and I, but viewers and fans will blow it out of proportion and be like, oh, it's going to be this. I would assume it's they could use their yearly as a stopgap if they don't hit this number. But it really depends on how many teams they have, because if they have 4 teams, then 4 years between the team turning over wouldn't be so bad. Be like team 1 year, team 2, team 3, and then start over.
Kind of like what Activision does with Call of Duty now. 3 developers, 3-year terms, 3 studios in
with
total,
success that people could argue.
Yeah, that's the thing, though. But I mean, that might just boil down to the series itself. But for me,
sure.
I mean, they got a lot to play around with. So I'm not too concerned about this news. I don't think it personally calls for concern. But I remember, I think it was you I saw on Twitter. You were like, "This isn't." Do you say this wasn't good or?
Yeah, well, I just said. So people saw that and they thought that's what I meant, and that's my fault. What I meant in the Twitter was that if you read even more into their announcement, they said the online elements of GTA 5 they want to roll into other things, and I was like, I don't want Red Dead, which is why I put Red Dead, and I was like, oh God, I mean, we already know there's going to be like, what do you call them, fucking horse cards, or not shark cards, but whatever you want to call them in Red Dead. And that scares the hell out of me, because Red Dead's online when it started. I mean, I don't know about you, but I actually thought it was pretty good.
I did.
And over time, I think it's dramatically gotten worse. And I'm just nervous that, I mean, who wants fucking shark cards and all this shit day one in a Red Dead, right?
Yeah.
Like that just doesn't, I don't know.
Yeah.
That's what I meant.
Okay. Yeah, then I'm totally with you. Yeah, I get GTA Online has to be doing something good. There's so many players. There's still so many people buying the game. So I'm not saying that because it's not for me, it's bad, but it's just I feel like so many of the big fans of their Rockstar franchises, will just use it as an example, want those more like Ballad of the Gay Tony. They want those single player DLC for those games, and when you add that online platform, Rockstar and Take-Two, they clearly see it as a way to continue making money, and it's smart because players are clearly having fun. Just for me personally, I played GTA Online for like 15-20 hours. I was like, okay, You know, that's it. And what's funny is it had a pretty good structure, but a lot of what excited me released years later. I remember the initial trailer for GTA Online was like, do heists with your friends. And that wasn't fucking included for years. And I remember saying that, and everyone was like, shut up, dude. Like, how could you hate on Rockstar after that? I'm like, they fucking promised me a part of the package in a trailer.
And it wasn't there.
Yeah, it wasn't there for not even like a couple months after. It wasn't there for years.
Years.
That always consistently blew my mind. But, you know, I just hope, like, for example, I could imagine heists in Red Dead Redemption 2 Online. And I could totally see something really cool like a train robbery. And that would be really exciting to do with a friend. It's a matter of, will they have it working at launch? You know? So that's why hearing those online components, they want to roll them into all their games. You know, like, yeah, we want to play more online games. We've been talking for a while how, like, we're missing that co-op gameplay a lot in the industry. So it's good that developers are looking to fill it, but when it just becomes not a platform to innovate, but a platform strictly to make money off of, that's where we see a really big issue, I think.
Yeah, and you sort of hit something on the head, is the time it takes. So they're a great company, and they make really good stuff, but it takes them a long time. So anything that isn't there day one, there's a reason why it's not there day one. Heists, for example. And so if they say they're coming, then I think, as much as I like their games, because, dude, I love GTA 5. I mean, love it. Had some of the best. Hang on one second. I got to put on my sunglasses. My eyes are killing me.
All good.
Oh, my God. Man. Hang on. And it is, I don't know what it's like there. It's super hot here. And I was outside on my deck.
For me, 70s.
I was painting, and my fucking eyes cannot handle it. So when it comes down to it, I think what's going to matter is, like, the expectation that it could take a while. And then if it does take a while, what do you get? Because with GTA 5, I felt we got a really great game. So people who argued with you and I about sieges, let's say, they felt backed up by what they were getting from GTA 5. But for me, what's happening is the online section getting worse and worse. The online, you know, you can only use your stuff in public lobbies. You can only do, and removing a little bit of the flexibility makes me nervous that that's what's going to happen day one on Red Dead. And then there'll be less of a way for you and I to argue for or against holding off on something else if they don't deliver it. And that makes me a little nervous. Also, I mean, do you believe we're going to ever get a DLC like, what is it? Not Lost in the Damned, which was also there, but the Red Dead one, Undead Nightmare. Do you? I mean, that was an insane DLC when you look at it.
Yeah, and it was one of the best ever made, and that's why I wonder why they look at, you know, okay, we got this cool online platform. It worked for GTA. That doesn't mean it's going to synonymously work with Red Dead. You know, I mean, Red Dead does have have the ability in the world to have some really cool gameplay moments for an online feature, but, you know, maybe make it more mission structured or something along those lines, because, you know, GTA Online, like, I feel like I'm just kind of mindlessly attacking it, which I don't want to come across as, but yeah, it's just a matter of, I think Rockstar has proven, naturally, of course, that they can do single-player expansions very well. I think, you know, some people have said before they liked some of the GTA 4 DLC more than the game itself. And so I think that
Lost in
speaks
the
volumes.
Damned for me.
Yeah, I think that speaks volumes. And same thing with Undead Nightmare, where they're like, I think I like that as much as the base game of Red Dead. You know,
Did you play it, Matty?
Yeah.
Did you play that?
Yeah.
What'd you think?
I love it, dude. I love it. Yeah,
it's a game in and of itself.
Exactly. See, that's the thing, is I was kind of late to the Red Dead party, because I've tried it so many fucking times, and I couldn't get into it. And like, I think part of it was a little bit the excitement of the initial announcement of Red Dead 2, but I was like, all right, let me just take another crack at it. And that time it worked. And I think some of it was the hype, but I finally, like, I saw it. I was like, okay, I like this game now, you know? And so that's kind of where I sit on Red Dead. I'm not like, and I've never claimed to be a super big fan. In fact, I'm one of the weirdest Rockstar fans you'll meet, because, you know, I think, like, Bully is the fucking best game they've made.
The shit, yeah, Bully. And no DLC for Bully, right?
Yeah, exactly. No DLC for Bully. A re-release a couple of times, but no DLC.
They Skyrim the shit out of Bully, let's be honest.
Yeah.
That shit's on Wii U, Xbox 360, PS4, PC 2 or 3 times. Like, what, Scholarship Edition?
Yeah, I was going to say the Scholarship Edition.
Yeah, there's like, we added 2 classes edition, and you're all, what the fuck? But it doesn't matter, because that's the thing. People may think that's negative, but the fact is that most of the time the people who are talking about this absolutely adore the games. So they're just hoping that continues. I mean, and I don't see anything wrong with that. I don't see anything particularly negative about saying that like online has been a little wonky lately and there are choices there. Because Red Dead's the new thing, and we want it to be good.
Why not just a little bit of both? I mean, maybe
exactly.
It's spread in too much, but it would be really cool to see like a single player expansion. Maybe it introduces some really cool gameplay mechanics, and if it's really well received, they're like, all right, let's put that in the online and try to innovate on it there. I think that would be awesome too. So there's potential.
I have a question for you.
What?
So they do good DLC, and their online at times is good. We like them as a company. Mafia 3 released DLC, the new DLC, the Murderer DLC is what I call it. I can't remember the name, but it's fantastic to the point to where I'm not going to eat crow and like change my review of the game because it's been patched and all that stuff, which is great. But it really showed that single player DLC today, like now, today, because that's when it's released, can be good. And I don't know about you, but are there other examples of, so let's say Red Dead comes out and it's great and it's got all this stuff, but we want to see more single player, let's say. Do you actually see them doing that? Because the only example I can come up with good single player DLC right now that's a full thing actually is Mafia 3, which I can't believe I'm saying that out loud. Yeah. But is there any other that I'm forgetting? What did Fallout 4 have? It had
Far Harbor, which I said was I said that was better than
great story,
way better than the base game. But no, now that you bring that up, now that you like bring it to attention, it's like, wait, hold on, like what are good single player DLC? I think I haven't played it. I've seen, so I'm not going off experience here. I've seen good things with Neo. So there's that. Let me look at my game rack.
Wait, does Neo have an expansion?
Neo
a
has
DLC?
A bunch of DLC, dude. Tons of updates.
Dude, I haven't got it. I've never got a chance to return to it.
Actually, it's crazy. I remember
for them.
When I was playing it like the month of launch, and they announced like there was like a new, I think, a boss rush mode. There was going to be like DLC that takes you to new areas. There's a couple of those now. I haven't had a chance to play it. I really want to get to it, but from what I've heard, it's pretty good. So it's one of those examples. I think some developers shy away from it because it can take it might end up being a waste of money, because you'll have an example like Mafia 3 where they have the base game and then they release the DLC and it's so much better in the base game it almost makes them look foolish.
You're right.
And it might not sell well either. And it's like, too little too late. Sorry, Hangar 13. But on the other hand, I like how we used Fallout 4 as an example. I like how we saw Bethesda, while I think most of the DLC was fucking silly, like the settlement stuff, they did a good job of saying, like, here's Far Harbor, where, your special stats play into effect. You had a lot of choices to make with some good impact. There were some well-written side quests. It was like you could see them saying, like, okay, we can make an RPG. Like, what do you think of this? And then they put out Nuka World afterwards, which was quite literally, I liked it, but it was more of the same. It was explore, kill, scavenge, recycle, that type of stuff. And, how do fans respond to that? So, if anything, I think DLC is important, not just because it's more content, but because it lets you, interpret what those hot fixes, those changes that fans are asking for, what kind of impact they have on the game, and what
that's
you
a
can
good
see
point
in future entries in the title.
That's actually a really good point. So a lot of times when you get a patch list and you'll be like, okay, there's 800 patches, I may never revisit some of this shit. Like I may never see this new skill or whatever. But with a DLC, single player or even multiplayer, that is one nice thing about them, is that a lot of times they come with the, packaged in. You can go, okay, I can see how this is impacting or how this has improved it. Back to these guys in particular, the only thing I'm worried about is the fact, like I said, is just the online bit. I think the yearly stuff is fine if they have 4 to 5 studios, because you have a 4 to 5 year turnaround. And I think for most devs, they would agree that that's getting either too long or too short, and that 4 years is about right. So I'll have to look. I think they have more than 4 teams.
Yeah, they definitely do. I mean, Take-Two, that's the thing. I don't want to say for all their flaws, outside the modding thing, I haven't seen them get really much negative press. Like I said, I'm just going off top of my head right now. But, you know, they definitely own a lot of good studios, and you don't see them milking them to some extent. I think GTA Online is just the only thing they're kind of just like constantly with.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but as for the DLC thing, that's interesting. Yeah, they can really show a transformation of a title. It's exciting. One example, it's not a single-player game, but The Division. We talk about that a lot on the show, and that's one that, you know, really, you saw a player surge from its DLC. And I'm curious, we'll hop to this bit of news now because I think it's a good transition, and those types of things turn me on, is, you know, the new content coming for Honor. We got 2 new seasons of content, dedicated servers. I mean, these are changes we were just saying needed to happen. We need more content. We need to know when it's coming, and we need to know, we need dedicated servers, because peer-to-peer, fighting someone across the goddamn planet, that's not going to work.
Right.
So, what do you think? Do you think this is enough to save it? We're going to see a siege here?
No, I think it's awesome. I think the last 4 players who are now playing For Honor will have dedicated servers. That was actually a joke stolen from Reg, one of my friends. It was it literally made me crack up. I think that dedicated should have been day one. And so when you talk to, you know, any gamer, and peer-to-peer is brought up, you know, you start to really get a lot of excuses for why it's there versus pluses, right? Because normally when you're talking about anything, you're always talking about the pluses, and then you go to the negatives. But it's weird about that one particular element. There's almost never a real positive. It's just an excuse for the negative that it has. And so to me, I personally would have loved for them to have had both options day one, peer-to-peer, because I do know some people, because of where they are, they don't have the ability to use dedicated servers, so peer-to-peer would work for them. And then dedicated, I would love to see more options for gamers, because if you're asking somebody to fork up $60 and then their internet fee and maybe a VPN fee and a this fee and a that fee, my personal belief is that you just give you give more options. And I don't know why dedicated wasn't in day one for a game like that.
No, I completely agree. So you don't think, based off what we were just talking about, you know, how DLC can really change a game, you don't think with some extra classes and dedicated servers that's enough to maybe see a bit of a resurgence?
Well, I don't remember what you thought of this game, so I'll say my part, and then I'd like to hear what you thought. So, for example, Rainbow Six Siege. I liked Rainbow Six Siege day one. I liked it a lot. And there were issues with it, but that doesn't mean no game's perfect. Has it improved? By leaps and bounds. It's almost, it's still the same game, but it's almost not the same game because it's improved so much. And it saw a huge resurgence. So For Honor could see that. But I will say that one issue For Honor has that the people that, you know, follow the channels and they talk to us on Twitter and stuff that I hear a lot is the DLC weirdness and the microtransactions weirdness. That kind of stuff also I think needs a keen eye from Ubisoft to go, okay, if we're going to continue having our monetization like this, we need to explain to gamers why it is, because it is a little odd compared to most other games. They need to fix some other stuff, because just because technically it will work better doesn't mean that somebody will say, I want to jump into a game I have issues with outside of technicalities. So, but what did you think of Rainbow Six Siege?
Same. I liked it a lot at launch. I thought it was excellent, personally, and like I said this a couple episodes ago, biggest regret not putting that on my Game of the Year list. Would have been right up there. But yeah, I love that game, and yeah, as I saw it improve more and more, it kept pulling me back in. And I say this to this day as well. Only reason I stopped playing Siege is because I started playing Overwatch, and it was just like, all right, I put like 80 hours into Siege. It's enough. I'm gonna move on to Overwatch now, and that just kind of took the cake for me. And I put like 250 into that so far. So you know, I think we'll see a bit of a resurgence just because of Ubisoft's history. But my question is this, it's good to see these games recover and rebound, but I'm kind of tailing off of what you said. Why don't we see this up front at launch? Why don't we see the explosion out the gates? Is this a bit of, there's a term I heard, it's called feature delay. We're like, do you think they hold back on this stuff to just keep it going, to just, you know, they get all the money up front from the sales, and they get some people afterwards, they see a dip, okay, dedicated servers, new content, oh, we're back, you know, and then they get more sales again. Do you think this is a part of possibly their plan? Because, for example, people think they're doing that with Battlefront 2. They think Battlefront 2, there's going to be feature delay with Galactic Conquest. It's been the biggest requested feature since the announcement of EA acquiring the Star Wars license and putting DICE on Battlefront. They were like, we want Galactic Conquest. And people are thinking with Battlefront 2, they've been listening to everything. Why ignore that one feature? Otherwise, it would be DLC. And you think if they're trying to sell the game more, they would have announced it by now, right? So people think it's feature delay for that too. So do you think that's what Ubisoft's been doing here with both Even Siege, which we both like, but also For Honor?
I mean, it's possible. The thing is we surround ourselves with like-minded individuals. So just because I would agree with a lot of what was just said doesn't necessarily mean that statistically it's right. Mm-hmm. And so you'll hear publishers and developers when they announce, for example, if they're publicly traded and they have their announcement meetings, which I was reading to you prior to the podcast for Capcom's, it can be quite surprising at times. You'll be like, whoa, really? They're this and like, we didn't think that. That's because we're gamers who don't have an inside scoop on the company and we don't know what their plans are. So has it happened before? It absolutely has, because for many developers, a feature is DLC in a way. So it depends on who you're talking to. But then you start getting into the morals of it all. And I don't really believe at that point, it's beyond even our ability sometimes to discuss. And I know that other people discuss it, but it's like, do they do it on purpose? And is it nefarious to keep people buying it or to keep people returning? But here's the thing. If you and I had the choice, right? Because games are released every day. So if we don't get a chance to play a game that released last week, there's even less chance the next week. Would you agree? Because there's so many games being released? Yes. Okay. So wouldn't you be more inclined to jump into a title that was considered by many to have almost everything it needed to be successful day one versus a patched title? And additionally, when you talk to developers and they have a problem day one, there's another comment that they'll say, which is that you will never capture the day one emotion ever again. It'll never be there. Yeah. The bump of PR, because companies literally won't cover it. They'll cover Mafia 3 had issues day one, but they won't cover a Mafia 3 DLC review. We've seen that. Mm-hmm. So I think most companies probably are like, let's get what we can in there. But again, it's cost too. Like, dedicated servers, how many people we're going to have play. Maybe we hold off on that because it's going to cost us a ton for Amazon Azure servers if that's what they're using. Okay. I mean, maybe. I don't know.
No, you make a good point there. So wait, let me just verify something. What were you exactly asking? You said between a game that, quote, feature delays that you buy a patch for and DLC, or a patch title and a title that has everything up front.
Yeah, so what I'm saying is what do you think would garner the most excitement from you as a gamer, as Maddie? If I said, hey, Maddie. If I was
buying this weeks later?
Yeah, or months later. If I said, hey, they finally fixed. I mean, just listen to the description. Hey, Star Wars Battlefront has everything day one, dedicated servers, peer-to-peer if you need it, bots, Galactic Conquest Edition, and it's out tomorrow, okay? So that's one thing I say. Or what if I say 6 months after the game's out, hey, they finally added Galactic Conquest to Star Wars.
That makes you want to buy it more.
It does, but it will never get back to the huge excitement you had when somebody says, it's on, today it's on. Yeah. Instead, it's this disconnect where one YouTuber and one Twitter person say, oh, this is coming out. And I personally, if it was me, I would be much more interested in the title with everything day one, or as a solid package. How about that? Just a incredibly solid, worthwhile package day one.
I think there is more, to a degree, as much impact as someone who, for example, we'll talk about Battlefront 1. They heard at launch, oh, this is okay framework, but we don't have enough content here. All right, I'm skipping it. 6 months down the line, oh, the Rogue One expansion, and look at this one too. They're doing the Death Star, and they're adding so much content, and then a season pass sale. It's like $10, or the Ultimate Edition, $10, and you get the whole game and all the DLC. That can also be really impactful. Where you're like, okay, I skipped out on this half a year ago, but now it's looking more like the game I wanted. And so,
at that time, I would agree. But in those 6 months, if you had everything day one, that person might have been buying your microtransactions.
Exactly. Yeah.
So you've lost out. You made your $10 so much 6 months later. Yeah, there is. And that's good because I think a lot of gamers don't even, there's so many things to sort of take track of. It can be difficult to understand, like all the little idiosyncrasies. But it is, I would much rather have a day one person there for 6 months to possibly get some new cosmetics they liked and be really happy with the game and telling people and doing Let's Plays and doing Twitch. the Overwatch, and then say, okay, we finally hit it. Oh, for example, a lot of the people that I say I like Rainbow Six Siege, they'll be like, well, I didn't like it day one. And that's the end of the conversation. And that, to me, I would say is probably a fairly large group of gamers who are just like, sorry, buddy, there's something new tomorrow.
Yeah, but I mean, Rainbow Six Siege is a very special case because that's a game that has more players now than when it launched. It just exploded and has.
It's that good, Matty.
Yeah, and I'm just like, that's insane to me. You know, usually you see the crescendo or the nosedive is all the way up here, and then it comes down to the bottom. You know, 6 months later, but for Siege, it was up and then steady. It was like, okay, then, good for them though.
It's crazy. I think a lot of it's just luck too, because most you don't see that. So I think most companies wouldn't aim for that as their business plan.
Yeah, I was funny enough just before the podcast, like I discovered a couple of channels that just do Siege content strictly, and it's like a fervent community. Like,
dude,
I'm sitting there thinking this is a whole quadrant that I didn't even know about. So
right,
it's pretty crazy to see how that just formed out of nowhere, really. So after that, let's talk about, we were talking about more DLC. And Bethesda announced that, which just kind of caught me off guard, the title, Wolfenstein 2 is going to have its own season pass. And I have the entire details for everyone listening right now. Just let me go ahead and get it up on my phone. It's entitled Wolfenstein 2, The Freedom Chronicles, and if you pre-order the game, you get an introductory chapter to the DLC. So The Freedom Chronicles is actually a trilogy of entirely separate adventure tales featuring 3 new characters doing battles against Nazis in other parts of the United States. The first is the adventures of Gunslinger Joe, featuring former pro quarterback Joseph Stallion putting the boots to the bad guys from the ruins of Chicago to the vastness of space. Next comes the diaries of Agent Silent Death, the former OSS assassin Jessica Valiant, who must infiltrate Nazi bunkers in California to discover the secret of Operation San Andreas. And finally, Part 3, The Amazing Deeds of Captain Wilkins, recounting the heroic mission of U.S. Army Captain Gerald Wilkins, who leads a mission to Alaska to disrupt Operation Black Sun. The season pass will be available for $25 or 18 euros, or it can be had for a little bit cheaper with the Wolf 2 Digital Deluxe Bonus Edition, I hate that name, which sells for $80, or, you know, and there's basically every equivalent of that for $80. Pre-ordering either edition, like I said, will also net you the Freedom Chronicles Episode 0, a separate mission that introduces you to all 3 new characters. Episode 0 will also be included with the Season Pass, so you can still pick it up even if pre-ordering isn't in your bag. And yeah, that's it. So that is the Wolfenstein Season Pass. You're going
awesome.
Yeah, you're going to California, Chicago, and Alaska. And what's funny is while I was playing Wolfenstein 2, because I had the chance to go to an event this past week, and I saw that you were in Roswell, New Mexico, and it didn't look anything like it. And I thought to myself, wow, they have a really good platform now if this game does well to just take you to different parts of the United States and show the battles there. And they do just that with the Freedom Chronicles. So for $25, 3 missions, I'd imagine they're a couple of hours each or something. Do you think this is going to be something that'll excite gamers?
Yeah, well, it sounds funny, but the middle one excites me the most because I'm a huge No One Lives Forever fan with Kate Archer, and we'll never get another one because of IP hell it's in. But a female operative, like when you were talking about going into Operation San Andreas, I was like, my brain was, of all the companies out there that could have the humor of a No One Lives Forever like Monolith did, it actually would be the guys who are making Wolfenstein. Like they do get it. Even though it's serious, there are times where there's some funny bits.
Oh, God, yeah.
And that would be, I cannot wait to see, and especially because they're talking about ex-operative. My hope is that some of those guys are like us and they're fans of No One Lives Forever, and they're like, you know, because if it's just a skin replacement with a gun, it won't be as cool. But if it's like some changes to the gameplay, some different weapons, then you're talking about something that could be fantastic. If this character plays not totally different, but somewhat different than this character on this season pass, that could make it really worthwhile.
Yeah, I mean, I really hope so, because in Wolfenstein The Old Blood, we saw, I believe, and feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, but that's where we first saw they introduced the commander mechanic. So a little icon will pop up telling you where a commander was nearby. If he spotted you, he'd let everyone know. Reinforcements would keep coming until you took him out. That's in Wolfenstein 2 now. So I'm wondering if we're going to see if it's just going to be more of the same, or if we're going to see features that they're thinking about doing for presumably a Wolfenstein 3 in that DLC. I wonder how it's really going to go. Because one of my, and I wouldn't say complaints, but concerns with Wolfenstein 2 was just that. I was like, it was really exciting, fast-paced gameplay. If it's not broken, don't fix it. But it did feel like more of the same. It wasn't like that, you stealth the room, you'll probably inevitably get caught, and from there it's gun blazing. There's a good amount of enemy archetypes, but it's usually just pump enough bullets into them, it's fine, not really targeting a weakness. And so that was my one concern, was just the gameplay similarities. Whereas at least the old Blood added that new stealth mechanic, that, taking at least stealth until you can take out the commanders, then maybe just blow the fucking room up. But, I didn't see enough of that to really get a full feel for it. But one thing, and I don't mean to repeat what I said in my video to those who are listening right now, but one thing I thought was really cool was the wheelchair bit, because you're rolling around in this thing, so it's changing the movement, it's changing the locomotion of the gameplay you're used to in Wolfenstein. It's changing how you explore the level, and you can't dual wield because you're moving the wheel with one hand, so you can only use one gun. So I thought that was a really good change, not only narratively, but also in the gameplay-wise. So I'm hoping to see more of that.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. I don't think that those guys are typically sort of rest on their laurels kind of thing. Most of the time, I would assume they're probably aiming for an intelligent number of changes. Absolutely. Like, that's the big thing. Don't do too much and don't do not enough. So I would love to see, like you said, the wheelchair section. I would love to see just a couple changes to some of the weapons, how they work. And then we talked about it in the Destiny discussion, and I still believe that the first of the new Wolfensteins hit this pretty well. I wasn't as much of a fan of the second one, but I want to see more of why these guys are badasses. Like, I talked about this in the Destiny discussion, where it's like, so this new guy's a badass, but like, how did he get created? Like, what, because that sort of makes you go, oh, that's a monster. It's not just a skin, right? It's not just a reskin. Yeah. That's what interests me, is what at minimum, what little tidbits of the story are they going to interject to make you go, dude, I need to take this bad guy out fucking ASAP. Like, big time. And that's more exciting to me than almost anything else, is like the little bits that they might add exploration. That's why the season pass sounds awesome, because to me, I am a globetrotter. I love games where it's like James Bond, where, or Indiana Jones, where
Resistance
you see that
3 is one
you're always flying around,
where you're going from one end of the United States to the other. Oh,
Halo, almost all the Halos are these huge treks where not only narratively, but visually you can look back. Alan Wake was another title where you could look back way down and go, holy shit, I started way down there.
Yeah, now you mentioned that. I love that in games. Yeah, BioShock is one. Just every level
BioShock is great.
It's a new area. Wow. Yeah, that's a really good point.
My fingers are crossed that they know that a couple things need to change. They don't do too much. I'm sure they're hiding some stuff from you guys too.
I think for like Wolfenstein, The New Order, I mean, you think of how when we first were introduced to the series, you had that stealth to action gameplay, that big fucking robot dog boss, I think it was. That was insane. You got into that big mech at one point. So yeah, they definitely keep their cards close to their chest. One thing I think I'm seeing them sell up front a lot is the atmosphere, the story. Two things that really caught me off guard were, for example, seeing Nazi soldiers run down members of the KKK. That's just such a like.
It's a dichotomy, isn't it?
Yeah, right. Yeah. It's like, whoa, that's strange. And also was seeing Frau Engler, I think her name is. I apologize if I got it wrong. Like practically fat shaming her daughter and making her feel awful about herself, which like really, you were like, in this game you're supposed to hate the Nazis. You're not really supposed to sit there and go like, oh, that's kind of mean. Like it's supposed not to feel bad. So it's really an interesting game in the narrative perspective more than anything for me so far, because they're humanizing this experience. It's, you can make this badass killing machine BJ Blazkowicz, but they're humanizing it, which they did in the New Order. And I'm surprised how well they're carrying it forward in this one so far, at least from what I've seen.
Yeah, that'd make me interested for sure to see those kind of things.
Atmospheric, lots of ambient conversations going on that you can just stop and watch the NPCs interact that bring the area to life. Like lots of stuff that you can miss, put it that way. If you just walk
audio logs,
not audio
I'm
logs.
dying.
Yeah, actually no. There's papers. let me write down this convenient note and leave it here in this little box.
Well, that's
no, that's
it almost sounds better that way.
Yeah,
than
no, I
an
know.
audiobook.
I'm just kidding.
Okay.
No, but you'll find like pictures and old newspaper articles. Like one of the collectibles, a guy was standing there just holding newspapers out on the street, and I took one from him, and it turned out to be a collectible. So I like that. One of them was picking up one of the books and reading it. So it was at like a vendor's stand or something. So they're doing a good job, just not. One thing we've kind of jokingly complained about, but it actually is sort of justifiable, is just mindlessly leaving collectibles about in the secret area and instead putting it in a place that makes sense.
And you actually just made me interested by one thing you said, which was, it sounds stupid, and I'm sure some people will be like, why does he care about that? But the idea that somebody's waving a newspaper and you can interact or not, but if you do, you find out that's a collectible. That's pretty rare. I can't remember the last time where an item from a person was a collectible, but I can tell you the billions of times a diary is laying in the center of a road. And you're like, how the fuck did this? And I get that some people are like, I don't care. That's great. But some people do. And with those collectibles, if there's a reason for me, there's more of a reason for me to get them and look for them.
Yeah, I'm sure there's the simple ones. Like I saw,
I'm sure there's
gold bars. I'm sure those are just lying around. They got to be. But overall, I really liked what I played. I left the event like fully confident. I was like, this is gonna be a great game. I'm pretty confident they have a good idea of what made the first one good, what people kind of complained about with the Old Blood, because that one I thought was okay, but they didn't have that same narrative push that to tell that good story. It just kind of was like, here's more Wolfenstein, which is what I'm kind of nervous about with the season pass, is what I was getting to. That's the one concern I have, is because the Old Blood felt like it had a little less thought to it. Like they were trying to, I remember the promotional videos for it. They were selling the pipe the whole time. These it was like the new melee weapon, but you could use it like pry open shit, and it was such a simple mechanic, but they were using it as a selling point. So I hope I'm not asking for a major gameplay overhaul, especially in a DLC pack that ends up being $5 more than the entirety of the Old Blood, but I'm hoping that they do add some new, fresh things to it with those expansions. But the Globetrotting Adventure still sounds fucking awesome in my book.
Yeah, that immediately excited me, because I hadn't heard anything about what the actual missions were. I'm all over that.
It's a shame we're gonna have to wait till after launch to review it.
Yeah, no shit.
All that good press for a delayed review. Anyway, moving on. There was some interesting happenings on YouTube, and we're not really going to talk directly, in a negative way, rather, about the creator, but I thought it would be good to offer our 2 cents, because we both are heavily invested in the YouTube sphere, about Angry Joe and the YouTube disconnect, we'll call it. I got that term from Richard Review Tech USA. I think it was a great way of putting it. And basically what's happened, and Angry Joe made a response video to this, by the way, for those who are just catching up now. But what happened was Angry Joe made a video saying, I'm basically taking a vacation from Angry Reviews. You're going to see content as per usual, but I'm just taking a break, and Angry Reviews will be back in September. Before that, he had made a schedule promising, I don't know if it was like an Angry Review like every month, something along those lines. But put it this way, fans are pissed that he was taking the vacation, not living up to his end of the bargain. And so I felt this highlighted a bit of a disconnect, because you could see why both sides were wrong. Like Angry Joe obviously should have lived up to his side of the deal, but his viewership needs to realize that downvoting his content into oblivion, becoming very toxic in the comments, is not a way to motivate a YouTuber to go out and make those reviews. And it's just one of those things where you see a lot of people assuming that YouTube's that very lazy job. It's not strenuous. It's not tough, but or rather, I shouldn't say it's not tough. It's not physically strenuous, and that's where people think, oh, he just sits on his fucking ass. Like, what's so hard about that? But you'd be surprised, especially when you got an audience like that, who not all of them, but there was a portion of them who were literally just tearing down his years of hard work since, I'd say, about 2012, when he really started making a name for himself. And so I wanted to get your 2 cents, Karak, on what you thought about this whole disconnect between viewers and YouTubers in this scenario in specific.
I mean, like, Joe put out the video, and I talked to him about it on his comments. He put out the video saying, hey, you know what, I'm gonna do I can't remember what it was, like a review a month or something. And I was like, and you know, we've talked a couple times on Twitter, a couple times in comments, not a ton, not personally or anything. And I was like, do what you have to do to like make sure you're enjoying yourself, that you're having fun. And then, you know, a while passes and he says, okay, you know, I've decided to take a vacation. And the fact is that I don't really think he did anything wrong by saying what his plan was at the time. Like his plan at that time maybe was that, and then something popped up and you can't do it. You know, he didn't have the time, and so he decided to change it. And the fact is it's one of the reasons why, for example, you and I have talked about this, because I think you mentioned it maybe last podcast, but there's times where you're like, I just don't want to look at comments. It's just going to be
after the podcast. You were just like, "What are you doing this weekend?" I said, "Nothing." I said,
"Yeah, but
I said,
you said, but I'm not looking at comments."
Yeah, I was like, "Nothing's wrong with me." I said, "I'm not pissed, not upset. I just want to disconnect for a weekend."
Yeah, and it's funny because like I'll have viewers who are from your channel come to my channel, comment on mine, and vice versa, and we see negativity even in the podcast. You know, you'll see negativity. You know, about everything we talk about, anything we talk about. And we're just randomly talking, let alone if you put a video out and say, this is exactly what I'm going to do. But I would say that there's a disconnect between any creator, whether it be a movie star, a person who makes films, a person who paints, whatever. Luckily, I've done a couple of those. So like I sort of knew what I was being prepared for. But it's like, I don't really see a problem with anything he did. Number one, his videos are so beyond my own scope that it's difficult for me to say what would even go on behind the scenes. He's got costumes, he's got fucking sound effects, and he's got all this shit that is so far beyond me pushing enter and acting like an idiot for 8 minutes. I mean, come the fuck on. So when I see somebody say, hey, Karak is doing more reviews, or Maddie's covering more stuff and doing more reviews, those kind of things, I'm just like, it's not the same. He put out his video, which is on him, and then something's popped up, obviously, and he wants to take a vacation. The disconnect, I don't think, is alien. I think it exists everywhere. You always hear that you'd never want to meet your heroes. Yeah. That's because they're normal people. And whatever's happening, he's just like, hey, I need some time. And here's what matters to me, that the person's having fun. And the reason why is because if they're not, especially on a creative thing like making a video, you'll be able to tell. And if he's not having fun, then really the only thing anybody should care about is making sure that he's enjoying himself, because you can be meaner, you can be funnier, wittier, faster, create more if you're having fun. If you're mired in shit, then it's going to be pretty terrible. And I just don't have a judgment against anything that he did. People will always be jerks, so the people who are jerks for him, whatever. People are jerks to me, so that
such
doesn't
a large portion, yeah.
It is, but I think a lot of it's because he's so good. Like, dude, I mean,
oh yeah,
I remember
it's because
he's so good.
Yeah, you'll look at his we'll use the like to dislike ratio just as a small sample of what it's like, where you'll see like his angry reviews are like 42,000 likes to like 1,000 dislikes, if anything. It's this insane fucking ratio, this insane viewership. And then like he'll make a video afterwards, you know, here's an Angry Joe plays, and it'll be like 2,000 likes and like 500 dislikes. You know, they'll be like, this is not an angry review. But I think the disconnect also comes in where people don't know how much fucking effort it takes. And I'm not talking about our own videos at this point. I'm talking about his. You know, it takes so much time. Fucking green screen, like you said, costumes, those special effects, the sound effects, trying to do that type of stuff while avoiding copyright as well, which he does a pretty good job of. Sometimes he struggles and he'll get slammed a little bit. But, you know, that type of stuff is, especially his reviews are like 30 minutes long on average. You know, like for me, I struggle to make my reviews, I'd say 10 minutes long. I don't sit down and say this is how long I'm going to talk for. I just try to break down the game. And I know some of the time is filled in with skits in his videos, but still, man, I mean, he makes insanely detailed, long, informative reviews. It's like, you know, you got to accept at some point, especially because on top of that, where all that production value, all that time it takes, hours upon, like, fucking hours a week. And then he does the Let's Plays, he travels to game conventions and does interviews and shit. Like, the man takes it all on, and you got to wonder, like, how much more do you want from him?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I get people's disappointment, but
same.
You can be disappointed in not seeing Star Wars because it's been delayed, but that doesn't mean you hate the person. I mean, you don't always hate the person who's doing it. Sometimes factors pop up.
Mm-hmm.
And so to me, that's what's happened.
Yeah. And a viewer or a fan of his on his Reddit broke down like the number of angry reviews he did every single year. And he's done about like 10 to 12 for the past like 3 years, and he's already at 10. It's July, so he's well gonna surpass last year's total. So people are like saying there's hardly any angry reviews, yada yada yada. And what Joe said in his response video, he's like, that's not it at all. He said, in fact, it's an explosion of my other content that you guys are just having an issue with because it's not what you want, or the idea that you can get more of my angry reviews if I'm not doing this. And it's like, no, that's not going to happen, because we're doing a great job of balancing all of it, especially because he'll surpass it even when he comes back in September, no matter what. And I think that says a lot. I mean, I don't know. I think the biggest disconnect is always you play video games, you sit, you talk, how hard is it? And a lot of it, I think, happens, it's a mental thing. You know, a lot of the struggle is in the head. It's not physical. Yeah, you're sitting in a fucking computer chair editing a video. I'd be a big fucking pussy if I sat here and was like, oh, I'm so tired. But it's a mental thing that wears you down. When you read that shit constantly, you'll see a bad comment, you'll be like, you shrug your shoulders, but it sits with you a little bit longer in your subconscious than you imagine. And you see enough of those, and it starts to tear down your energy, your motivation. And then we have what happens where you see YouTubers. It's not just a fucking thing where YouTubers get lazy coincidentally. Why do you think so many of these creators sit down and go, I'm taking a vacation, yada, yada, yada? You know,
I posted that on my Twitter. I was like, a couple weeks ago about vacations. I was like, there's a reason why a lot of people sit down and take a vacation. And they are taking a vacation. They're stepping away.
Yeah. I mean, for me, I don't announce it because I'll just say, okay, I'm going to sit down, bust my ass for like 3 days and crank out some videos and schedule them all. And then I'll take my own personal vacation. I don't have to fucking let everyone know what I'm up to, that type of thing. But yeah, I mean, there's like you said, like I just said, there's not this magical being that is making them suddenly lazy after years of hard work. They get tired of the bullshit and think, okay, I just need to recharge my batteries. Because it's not like, you know, working that, you know, a 9 to 5, you work for a boss, you have vacation time, so you can choose, or you have set hours, so you know when you're actually just going to sit down and do nothing that day. Where, especially with a YouTuber, and we're not complaining, I should highlight that, but, you know, something can pop up. You know, especially for me, I'm a news channel. I could say, oh, okay, tomorrow I'm taking off. You know, just the 1 day off, that's all I want. I'm just going to chill and play PS4. Get an update on Twitter. This happened so many times with Fallout 4, I'm not complaining, but, you know, okay, I'm just going to take this day off because I've been really working hard making news videos. I sit down, Twitter notification. Maddie, breaking news, Bethesda just randomly dropped the trailer at fucking 6 p.m. in the evening. Well, fuck, I'm going to be working all night now. It's like being called in almost, you know? So, like I said, not complaining, but that's the type of thing you face as a YouTuber. You work random, sporadic hours. You work until the fucking ass crack of dawn sometimes. Sometimes there's not much to do. You know, it goes up and down so much. I personally love it, you know, but it definitely, I don't think YouTubers should be slammed for taking a break. They're human. No matter what job you have, you want a break.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, we've talked about this on and off a little bit on the podcast and stuff. I don't know what jobs you've had, but for example, in my life, I've worked at lumber mills. I've worked at like military installations, worked at computer fab production, worked at developers of particular software, a couple other things. And working green chain, which is at a mill, is probably the most physically taxing, like truly physically taxing, because it's 8 hours, and then they can get you for overtime if there's more wood to come in. And I mean, I even tell my wife, I've worked harder on YouTube, worked, whether it be, call it mental, physical, whatever, being more tired afterwards, we'll just say that, than ever when I jump to YouTube. Now, you and I do things different. I don't do as much news, and you don't do as many reviews, but the same thing happens. For example, I have the ACG, the barbecue this weekend, but if I get an email Friday night that says, here's a game we want you to cover, and I go and look and go, oh shit, I've wanted to cover that, then I have to decide, like, how many, you know, how I'm going to separate church and state. Yeah, how am I going to do all that? And you're doing all those things, and this is anything that any painter, musician, anybody can have. But what's weird is a lot of people pretend that it can't occur at normal jobs, or that normal jobs can't be easy. And that blows me away, because I have worked at normal jobs that one person may think YouTube is easier, that was so easy you literally couldn't imagine it. Like that easy. And you get a lot of that thing where it's like, you don't have a real job, and it's like, I had a real job and that was nothing compared to that. You know, so you have that too. But I've just happened to work a lot of different places. And for me, I think the difficulty comes into it where I get a lot of complaints regardless now. And I'm not a huge channel. Both of us are at 300,000. So we're nowhere near. But I can tell you this morning, for example, the Sundered review, maybe that was yesterday morning. Fuck, I don't even know what day it is. It's Friday, right? Yeah, so Thursday. The Sundered review, I had 50 well, I've got 56 now emails saying you're a sellout because you did not say Sundered is a never touch. You said it's a wait for a deep sale. And then on a forum, couple forums I go to, people are like, this is the most nitpicky review ever. This game is absolute buy, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like,
I never played.
Yeah, and I'm sitting there going, oh, fuck, these people don't get it. And then I have other people saying, you do too many reviews. How is it humanly possible to play all these games? And then someone else on the same forum or on the same YouTube will say, you haven't done any reviews in days. And what's weird is those are the disconnects that bother me more than any of this stuff. The disconnects where people think that because a video goes live, that was the day you got it. Like, it's embarrassing.
Oh my God, how many times I've been fucking worked by my upload timing.
Yeah, ugh. And it's actually quite embarrassing for the poster, because you have to assume some common sense. You have to go, there's some common sense there that you realize that if 2 videos went live at 7 a.m. on the same morning, that person wasn't playing them. So there's like, for example, one time I had a 6-hour game and a 2-hour game, and somebody's like, you've done a ton of reviews, it's impossible. And I'm all, it was in 7 days. Yeah. Not only was it possible, I beat 2 other games. Like, what are you talking about? You have, so those complaints, you try to separate, but it's very difficult. And then you get somebody like Joe, who is both of us combined times 10, right? Almost 10. Yeah. And he's getting real ones, valid ones, that are valid about whatever maybe he's making. He made a mistake here or there. And then he's getting a lot of miscommunication kind of complaints. And it is probably pretty difficult for him. It would almost be, a lot of us, I always try to tell people who want to go into YouTube, what's it like? And I said, have you ever worked at a job where they made a mistake in their organizational tree and you have too many bosses? And I say, that's when you hear me say something's difficult, when you have so many bosses that you sort of just go, you know what? I'm not going to listen to any of you guys. I'm just going to, I know what I'm doing. And that's what I do as a YouTuber. And that's why most things don't bother me, because I'm just like driving straight ahead. I'm like, I don't.
That's what I've developed into. But I'll admit there have been times I've been like just peeved. You know, I just look at it. I'm like,
oh, so have I. Yeah, it happens.
It's not like I don't try to put on an inhuman front and act like thick skin. That thick skin's still skin. You know, sometimes you'll just be in a certain mood and something someone says will cut to you. I mean, man, like I said though, I've had some inconvenient uploads. I remember one time I made a joke to P9s on Twitter. I was just like, you know, welcome to the Fallout community, and he roasts me, and he's just like, Fallout community. He's like, dude, I've been there for a while, and it gets screenshotted, put on Reddit. And it was like the top rated fucking Reddit thread for like a day straight. I was like, God, I left it. I didn't give a fuck. But I already had a video scheduled for my thoughts on Fallout 1 and 2, my honest, updated thoughts on Fallout 1 and 2. Because I originally had said I wasn't a big fan of them. And then at that point in time when I made them, I had not played those games, which was stupid of me to make a fucking video about anyway. I played them. I'm like, these are pretty good. I'm gonna make a video about it. Fallout 4 is about to come out. I'm gonna let people know. And I uploaded it like 3 days before this tweet even happened. I scheduled it. It comes out a day after his tweet. And I'm like, and the comments were fucking full of people like, wow, dude, you're pretty soft. Like, you really made this because of some guy's tweet. And I'm like, oh, okay.
Oh, yeah. I see what you're saying.
Like, in a video later down the line, I'm like, by the way, while I have your attention, I'd also like to clarify something. So I showed them like a screenshot of the time, and there's like a time where it was uploaded, which was like I think July 17th, and then the upload date was like July 21st. I was like, this was made well before something happened between me and him. Like, I was making this video no matter what. It just uploaded at the worst fucking time.
I have a question. I have a question. Were you actually just being nice and saying welcome to the community?
Oh, no.
Or were you teasing him?
Someone said something, I think, silly to him, and he like, fuck.
Got smart back, maybe, and then
he was obviously joking, so I didn't take it personally. I didn't care. And when I saw it rated on Reddit as like one of the top posts, I thought it was funny. It was when people took it more serious than me and thought I was so insecure I was going to make a fucking video about it, where I was like, dude, this is just such inconvenient timing. But I was just more so tailing off of what you said more than anything.
Yeah, look at like, I'm really interested in what Lone, how the collab channel works out for Lone, because they're doing a lot of a game that's been out for a long time, or games that have been out for a long time, and multiple channels with multiple viewers all maybe watching the same. Because I've had it with you where somebody's been like, well, Maddie says this and you say this. And Last Guardian, because I rated it a barely buy, you rated it lower, I think, if I remember right.
I said pass.
Because a fucking cat won't answer your call. Which is true. Yeah. So, and I'm excited to see like how, or not excited, but I'm interested to see how they handle it, because I think a lot of the problems happen when you have a shared community, like welcome to the community, blah, blah, blah. And then somebody's like, I know this person. And then you start getting these weird cross posts where you're like, dude, I don't know.
You said, I'm just trying to go forward here.
Yeah.
I'm not upset.
Yeah. I don't even watch my own shit. Like, somebody will say, hey, you made a Ron Jeremy joke, I said a couple weeks ago. And they're like, do you remember what video it is? And I'm all, dude, I couldn't tell you what I said in yesterday's video unless you told me about the game. And then I would be able to say, this is generally what I said. But over time, I think it's best to just move forward, make your stuff. I think that communication is big now, though. And so Joe and anybody big probably sees that, and they'll just learn from it and go, okay, I need to, instead of promising, maybe I'll just do, right?
Exactly.
And let it sort of sit. Dude, but he's a caring guy, so he cares about his. That's not the problem, but that is one of the issues. He cares, and it hurt. I mean, it hurts him.
Yeah,
it hurts anybody.
Dude, that scheduling. You and I have talked about scheduling. We run on schedules where like, okay, this day I'm working, this day I'm doing that. Like, especially you, way more than me, is like very punctual. Like this time frames for this, and that. I think establishing, like, saying out loud on YouTube a schedule, like these days I'm doing this, and these time frames I'm doing that. Fucking worst decision you can make. Everyone is guilty of it. I've done it before, and every time I'm just like, all right, we had it rolling for like 3 weeks, and then I was just like, there's something more interesting to talk about. Fuck it. And then you just lose track of everything. And then you got so many mixed promises everywhere, and then if you come out with another one, it sounds wrong. So it's best just to go with the flow, have your own plan, keep it to yourself, and just let people focus on the thing that they came to you for, just enjoying or informing themselves, that type of shit.
Yeah, I'm great. I'm so happy and interested in the fact that Joe had a fan who counted up his reviews. And the reason why is because I don't have time to do that, but I've always been interested, like, is it true or not? Because that's the big deal. Is it true or not? And I get the same thing if I do a different video than what I'm accustomed to, and I'm sure you do too, because I remember seeing it. People were just mad as hell you weren't going to just cover Bethesda. I saw it. I saw people posting about you being like, you could have covered this, blah, blah, blah. Instead, you're covering a BioWare, and you're like, fuck, what? Like, the two don't... If there's nothing to talk about here, then shitty video about that won't be as good as a good video about something where there is something to talk about.
Yeah.
So I think it's best to just communicate the general lines. And I just posted a couple days ago, I'm like, I would much rather be known for doing than saying.
Yeah.
People can say, oh, Karak said this, that was funny, or I hate him for this. But I'd rather somebody just say, I like this review, or I hate this review, or I get it, and then move on. And just be known for just doing stuff, because I feel more comfortable that way than this nebulous gray area where you say something, somebody takes it the wrong way, and suddenly you're in a disaster.
It's best just to lead by example and let your work do the talking.
Yeah. I got to say, though, I mean, and remember this, Joe destroyed me by my very first review. So if there's anybody out there who might have a reason to hold a grudge, I guess it would be me. And I don't.
Do you mind if I ask you the story about this?
Oh yeah. I think I've talked about it before on this podcast, but maybe not. So Star Trek 360, the Star Trek game, based on the new Star Trek. like a Gears of War style where you became, Captain Kirk and Spock.
Yeah.
So I enjoyed the hell out of it. Was it perfect? No, there were bugs and all this stuff. And Joe was fucking livid about that game. And I don't know, like it slapped his mom, right? It was one of those games where it comes out and you're just livid. And he's like, this guy's a sold out, look at this reviewer on Metacritic. It was my very first time of entering anything into Metacritic. I'd never done it before. I was very happy to do it. And he's like, this is a brand new person who's never reviewed. And I'm like, that's correct. It is a brand new person who says to me. And so I went to his forum, I think at that time they had open posts. They may still. And I was like, hey guys, that's actually me. Like, I don't really get what the issue is. And for a while it sucked because but I got a lot of subscribers from it, which is always happens with negative news. You get way more than you do. It hurt.
Let's see what happens.
But I was going to say, if there's anybody out there who should have or has a reason to have a negative, whatever, I don't think that he did anything wrong. But I will say this. When I look at the stuff that like some particular reviewers create, like Joe and others who do the big things, I honestly am I don't understand how they do it because it's insane. And so people may say, oh, Karak's got a good scheduling system. That's correct. That's how I perform, is I schedule pretty much every 30 minutes. Joe does something different. What he does is a fucking black belt in making huge skit videos. And unfortunately, what happens is that can hurt you in the long run because people expect it. Yeah. And then they start going, oh, there's less or there's this or that. So I got to say, man, the dude just puts out content and it's like, yeah, he does Let's Plays and he enjoys those and he does his things, but I just don't see an issue. I guess I wouldn't have probably put out the "Here's my promise," because that's scary. Anything can happen.
And he said in the video, he's like, that was my biggest mistake. He said I should not have done that. And I was like, yep. You don't want to make schedules. I mean, the only one I'm good at is always saying like every Thursday. I intentionally say it in the video. I say every Thursday, or at least I try to get out an Elder Scrolls 6 wishlist video every fucking time. So I try.
You hit it pretty often.
Yeah, I was gonna say I hit it pretty often. I haven't for a while because there's actually been a lot of news to talk about. But when I come back, it's always on a Thursday, and I'm usually pretty consistent with it. So yeah, it's really hard to stay on that schedule. But yeah, that was a good talk. That was our longest segment yet, actually.
Yeah, I wish him all the luck, man, because like I don't ever want him to stop.
Hell
no. And I know people are like,
you and him were my initial inspirations for reviews. I didn't see you obviously until later, but
sure.
But Joe, I remember because I used to love the Angry Video Game Nerd. I thought his reviews were fucking hilarious. He's up there as well. Those skits, funny angry guy. And then you got Angry Joe, who was kind of like the new gen Angry Video Game Nerd in many ways. And I remember specifically talking to, it was actually a girl I dated, and she was big into film and stuff, and I was like, I need like a green screen. I want to try this. And like I was looking into investing in it, and I was like, you know what, I got to do my own thing, because if I copy him, then what makes my content special? But like, yeah, he was like that influential. And so, those are the types of things that really stick with me. So when I see him getting torn down for something that he's been doing regardless, that's the thing, is like everyone was saying like there's so few angry reviews. I'm like, I don't see that. I see a lot of angry reviews, especially for how long they take to make.
Yeah, and in the end, I want more people doing that kind of stuff because there's more people who are getting hands-on, because I'm a consumer rights channel. That's why I only do the new games. So because I hate the idea of like a game coming out and no review. Like it pisses me off. Yeah. I don't find that is fair to a consumer to say, buy a sight unseen, good luck, it may just explode. And you're like, that really doesn't make a lot of sense. Yeah. So I think that people who do that, people who do reviews like you and Joe, people who do those different style of things, the more hands-on you can get, the more you can get a general impression, as long as they're trying to be accurate, the more you can get a general impression of what this title is and what you may or may not like. So I think the more we have, the better.
Absolutely. Yeah. More the merrier, right?
Yeah.
So, speaking of more the merrier, dude, we are on a fucking roll with these segues. Or not segues. Is that the word? I'm having a brain fart.
Segue is the word.
Okay.
No, segue is the word.
Brain blew up at the wrong time. Anyway, 4.7 million Switches sold since launch. 3.5 million units for Mario Kart sold. ARMS has over 1 million, and Breath of the Wild 4+ million.
Damn, son.
Yeah, that is insanity. That for Breath of the Wild in particular, that was the only game on the system for a good month, but still, that's 4.7 million owners of the Switch own, or I'm sorry, 4+ million owners of a Switch own that game. And even Mario Kart, which was, I think, in May, so this is months after the Switch has been out, there's not that hype, there's not that new console high, at least in my book there wasn't.
Right.
And this is a game that, I know the Wii U, I get it, it didn't sell that well, but this is a game that already came out, and Mario Kart 8 Deluxe comes out and sells 3.5 million, so that's 3/4 of the fucking user base owning this product. I mean, that's insane exclusive performance.
I mean, I don't even really have anything to add other than I said prior to the podcast that the only time I remember anything being near that is when the story came out about like the Xbox 360. For every one that was sold, it had an attach rate of like 4.7 games, which was flatly unheard of. Like, people were just like, what the fuck? Like, that thing is selling so many games. But here, just by the sheer number of games and everything, I would assume that's even higher if you just look at the percentage. And that number is I mean, you're talking about almost 1-for-1 technically for Zelda, which makes sense. Yeah. It makes sense, but it's still pretty surprising, because if it's 1-for-1, then you assume some people may sell it and resell it and you wouldn't get 1-for-1. But instead, they did get 1-for-1, or very close to getting 1-for-1, which is, I mean, it's a fucking pack-in without being a pack-in.
Yeah. Do you remember, and this is going a little off track, but I got to know, do you remember what games you bought with your 360? If you bought it on launch, then you probably got the same as usual. But
no, I bought it a little after. I think it was Condemned, one of the Fight Nights, and it was 3, funny enough. It might have been Dead Rising. No, because it was before Dead Rising. But I know for a fact Condemned, that horror game, was big at the time. I didn't jump. It's the first system, the only system, I think, that I never jumped in day one, because I was playing the Xbox original looked really good, and it did 1080, and I was like, okay, great. And then one day, I can't remember what game it was, but I looked at the 2 games site. Gun. I looked at Gun, which is a Western, and I looked at the difference between the Xbox original and the 360, and I was like, oh, okay. And so I jumped.
Yeah, for me, when I bought my 360, it was Call of Duty World at War, Mass Effect. That was like that was the one for me. I was like, BioWare. And then Kung Fu Panda came with it, so I had 3. Yeah.
Shane Kim. Yeah. Those were the Shane Kim games, the Mass Effects. Microsoft had that one year where it was just like fucking game after game after. It was insane. Yeah, but it's nowhere near this really. When the difference is there's less games available, but the fact is when you look at the attach rate, that's fucking insane. It is a pack-in.
What I really want to see is how well like Super Mario Odyssey at the end of the year performs. Right. That's a big name, so I think it'll do well.
Christmas time.
But yeah, it's Christmas time. That's a good one too. So I think that's kind of set up to do well. But I want to see the attachment rate between how many systems are sold at that point and how many people own that game. Because I think officially at that point, yeah, you can say like, yeah, the new console high is definitely done. Because I could say for the PS4 and Xbox One, I was already well accustomed a couple of months after, let alone like that long. So that's an impressive amount of sales, I'd say. 4.7
Yeah, good for them.
Yeah, that is definitely
very good for them.
Just a quick little segment. Now we're on to the questions that viewers have submitted to us. I believe these came from your Patreon, correct?
Well, they came from my Patreon, but they were, I think every one of them but one is a subscriber, either patron or just normal subscriber to both of us.
Okay.
And so when I put out a questionnaire, they were like, hey, if you're on the podcast, one of them, can you answer these?
Okay.
So I gave them to you.
Okay. So first question comes from the name Bartender Sex is Free. And he or she asks, what is one standout character for you in a game? Just the one that surprised you completely. And just give me 1 second. My dog is pawing at my fucking door. Feel free to start answering that question.
So a standout character for me. Man. Yes. Okay, I've got one. Okay. It absolutely, and maybe it's because I just replayed it. This will be the 3rd time I beat it. Barney from Alan Wake. I think it's Barney. Yeah, He is your secondary in Alan Wake. He's your agent, your literary agent, and he's a foil for many different little scenes that go on. I'm trying to not pick like somebody in Red Dead, so or something like that. I'm trying to pick a little lesser known game. But the reason why I loved him so much is he not only was a foil, he was basically what they were trying to do was make you feel like he was actually the way a person would really respond, because Alan Wake isn't responding the way a normal person would respond to these situations, and he does. And his nasally voice, and he's like Alan, and I mean, every time he showed up when we were playing, we'd be like, here he comes, man, here he comes, and he would show up, and it was just fantastic. So yeah, I would say for me, he's absolutely a standout character that like I'll remember for a long time, just for the enjoyment of seeing him on the screen.
So for me, and this one's a more recent example, I think yours is probably a little bit better, but for me, it was 9S from Nier Automata, because I think there's very few characters in a video game that when they're introduced, they are a secondary character. You think they're just going to be playing a backup role, and he essentially is the main character as far as I'm concerned. He is literally the main character of the story by the end. And I think that is just fascinating to me, that you can transform that role and make him into a character you care about. So in that first playthrough, you give a shit about him, but then you're playing as him, and it takes on this whole different perspective, and they really flesh him out more. And then by Route C, it's game over, man. I mean, you find out so much, and like I said, it makes him that main character. It's really an impactful way of telling a story. So he's one that I think will stick with me for a really long while as well.
And he was cool for the fact that, I mean, a lot of people thought, oh, you only beat it once and then you're done. And it's like, no. It's Groundhog Day, the video game. You have to play. The funny bit is the repetitiveness, or what you think is going to be repetitive. Yeah, and it's so crazy because there are times in that game where your brain is telling you, I have to do something to break the cycle. Like I have to do something, just like for lack of a better comparison, Bill Murray in Groundhog Day, where he was consistently trying different things to get himself to wake up on the next day, and he kept waking up on the day prior. That's what in that fucking game in Nier Automata, there'll be times where you're like, I am in the same place. I fucking wish I could do this, but you can't. And that is absolutely at least 80% of the awesomeness of that title, is that characters and the responses and the reactions you get, and it changes your first game. This is a weird thing too. You play the first game, play through, and then you play the second story and maybe the third, and by the third time you realize that the first time you played isn't exactly what you thought the first time you played was. Like that's next level. I mean, that is next level.
I mean, I always, when I try to describe to someone the game, I try not to tell them you gotta beat it 3 times, because I feel like when you say that, they think to themselves, like you said, they want something to change, so they'll think it's the same game, but like you get a different ending cutscene. It adds a little bit more, like an extra 5 minutes, and it's like, no, especially the third playthrough. It is a whole new fucking game at that point. The second playthrough, like, yeah, kind of the same game. It's really a new game plus with some added material, I think enough to make it well worth your time. But the third playthrough is a totally different game. So I have a friend, Connor, a lot of people on the channel know him. He played Nier once. He was like, I love this game. I beat it. It was great, man. Fucking awesome. Thank you for suggesting it to me. I'm like, no, you didn't beat it. And he still says to this day, he beat it. And I'm like, dude,
no.
I'm like, please listen to me. You have so much left to see. If you thought that was good and that was awesome, just play the rest.
And technically, I mean, technically he has not beat it, because at the end of the first cycle, there's a reason why I say that. It's not, it's not. It's definitely not.
I always tell people, I'm like, instead of saying, yeah, you got to beat it 3 times, I say there's 3 stories. That's always what I say to them.
Yeah,
there's
that's
3 stories. Because then they're like, oh, like episodic structure or some shit, whatever.
Yeah.
It totally removes the fear of, oh man, but I got to beat it once. I struggled to do that, and let alone 3 times. It's like, no, just 3 stories. It makes the biggest difference.
That's actually a really good example. That game, talk about coming out of nowhere.
Yeah.
This cannot continue. This cannot. And I was just like, what the fuck? This is the most amazing music ever. I mean, and it's one of those times where you're busting at the nuts because you want to post about it. And I'm like, I'll, depending on the NDA, it depends on who I might talk to, but sometimes there's no one. Sometimes, like, for whatever reason, like, there's no one to talk, and you're just sitting there going, like, this is the greatest fucking thing. I can tell no one.
Wait to talk about it.
Oh, it sucks. It sucks.
Not like that night before, you're just sitting there in front of your computer, like, come on, embargo lift, let's go.
Well, that's why, like, occasionally, you'll get an email from me. I'll be like, I'm sure you've got it. Just don't tell me if you don't. Here,
Mm-hmm. So, oh shit, is there any other characters you can think of? Because for me, it's the first one that definitely comes to mind. But
No, because I mean, to me, I'm usually a fan of like the more eclectic characters. We were talking about this a while ago, and this character everybody hates but me, and I like him probably because everybody else, the things that everybody hates him for, I like him because it's different. But the snake oil salesman in Red Dead, the old guy, who's always talking about, you know, having a heart palpitation, and he fucking absolutely stokes me out every time because he's hilarious. Or the cannibal in Red Dead, the cannibal guy who fucking leads you on various like questionable missions, is just fucking amazing. And I gotta say, out of GTA 5, I know people like Trevor, and this just could be because you know, I'm not a huge drug user who can't remember where he is most of the time, but Michael, to me, and it was so because his wife and his midlife crisis, his kid is his kid,
Jimmy,
he's the best fucking rendition of a shitty child that he is a shitty child. I know. I have friends who have a shitty child that is identical, where it's like, you know, you don't even love me and you're unlovable. You're looking at him going, dude, it's because you're a fucking callus on the earth. Like, no wonder your parents, you know, you think they may not love you. They do. But so Michael is fantastic as a main character, not an NPC, but as a main character.
Yeah, for me, my thing is, so you like the different, we'll say, different types of characters. Yeah. Mine is always, I don't look for edgelords, but I always seem to like the assholes, the douchebags, because if they're done well, they are the most interesting part to watch in a story. I'll use a very niche example because it's always the first thing that comes to mind, and it's a series that I recommend a lot. I know it's very very narrow, so it's not a lot of people are gonna get into it, but I always say Danganronpa. And if you look at Byakuya and you look at Nagito, especially Nagito, he literally fucks with the story the whole time. And I don't want to get into why or how, but they're trapped on an island, and he is like just doing everything possible in this distorted fashion where he thinks he's doing the right thing, but he's really doing the wrong thing. He's doing it for hope, but he's bringing what they call despair, and basically the goal is to fight despair and all this shit. And he's just fucking everything up. And so many people like him, but so many people also are like, he is the worst. How could you ever like him? And it's like, that's why I like him. He's so entertaining to watch because it's like when he's on screen, you know he's going to own the moment. Mm-hmm. And so that's a series of characters. I mean, who are some other edgy... I don't know. I can't think of any right now. But, you know, I just like those.
I thought you were going to say Trevor from GTA 5 because... at the starting of GTA 5, he was too over the top for me. But I get why people like it.
And it's funny because I love Borderlands so much, but sometimes when it's too over the top, it just instantly, it's like you just took the switch and turned it off. And that's how Trevor was for me initially. I was like, okay, I get why people are like, ha, he's so funny. For me, I'm like, this guy's just a fucking idiot for no really good reason.
No
in my opinion.
Rhyme or reason. Yeah, he was like, to me, in Heat. You've got the one character that at the starting of the movie Heat who does stupid shit, and he becomes the enemy at the end. And in a way, I really do feel like a lot of elements of Trevor were stolen from him. Mm-hmm. And or not stolen, sorry, that was totally the wrong word, but were like influenced a little bit by that kind of character. But I love him. I like edgelord, man. It's so funny that word means what it means now, because that does not mean what it used to mean. And so whenever anybody says edgelord, I'm thinking a whole different fucking thing. So I like the assholes too. I just think that people don't handle them. Writers have a hard time handling them.
That's the thing too. It's not an easy character to write.
It's not. And I think the subtlety, people forget that a game is interacted at a certain speed, which could be different between Karak and Maddie. Mm-hmm. And so it's like, if you have a smartass, he can be a smartass if a one-liner is delivered in 1 second, but if it's delivered 10 minutes later in front of somebody, he can be a total douche. Mm-hmm. And so you have those kind of issues where, depending on how someone talks and what they do. I will say somebody that surprised me, and when I did my walking the walk on Uncharted 4, I mentioned this a little bit, but Haven, the chick from Haven, and I apologize, I can't remember her name, but his wife, Nathan Drake's wife, I actually felt like it's probably the best acting in a game I've ever seen. Far more so, I know people like End of Us. Last of Us.
Last of Us, okay.
But I think that's sometimes a little too over the top at times.
Okay.
So I was really impressed by her genuine, different emotions she portrayed at the times where they made sense. I was actually very impressed by that actress in that. And it was one of the first movies where I realized, or games where I was going, I know this actress because I watched the show, but I know that she's now this character, and I can tell it's the actress. And I sort of had this thing where I didn't see her digitally as much as I saw her as the actress doing her bits, and it really paid off. I thought that was well done.
See, have you ever had this like that, what you just described there, where you see too much of the actress and not enough of the character? Does that ever disengage you from the game?
Yeah, Troy Baker.
Yeah, that's the thing. I've realized when I've found myself lately, not because I don't like these stars, but when I find myself seeing these actors repeated in so many games, like, 2013 was like the year of Troy Baker, fucking BioShock Infinite, The Last of Us, and all this stuff. And it started to feel a little samey. I think he was also the Joker in Arkham Origins, I want to say.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah, so it's like, you see him in every game, and you start to just see him, not the character, and it just becomes disengaging in this way, where sometimes having that all-star cast is good, but I've found myself, like, I think Persona 5 was a good example. They had a really stellar voice acting cast, but it was kind of like these up-and-coming voice actors, not these top-of-the-line ones, except for Matt Mercer. He's already up there, but I think, and they always say this, I forgot who it was actually specifically, I heard it from first, the best voice actors are the ones who you can't tell it's them.
Yeah.
I want to say it was...
I can tell that it's always... And this is not dissing on Troy, by the way, because there's a reason why he's in everything, because he's actually good.
Yes.
But it is very hard unless you're a Robin Williams or you're a ventriloquist or you're a voice, a talented voice trained person, which I don't think, I know Troy isn't. I know most of these people, that's not what they grew up, preparing to do. They do sound like Troy Baker being Troy Baker as Troy Baker in the Troy Baker Show. And you're like, okay, I get it. And I can buy off on those. Mark Hamill had a couple issues at certain times where he was continually the Joker, and I was like, nah. It was a little too. Sometimes the voice inflection just isn't strong enough to push you over to thinking it's the Joker, and you're thinking it's Mark Hamill.
Yeah.
So those kind of things happen. I'll tell you the best voice actor. He's only done one game. Well, two. The best voice actors. Number one, Bill Marston, the guy who played in Red Dead. But if somebody who just does a fantastic job, and I still talk to him on Twitter, he's never been hired back. So I don't know why. He wants in, but no one's hired him back. Lost World 3, Bill Williamson is his name. He's the main lead in Lost World 3. And I am telling you, that's the Capcom games that involve the snow planets and the bugs. Lost Planet, sorry. Because I was calling it Lost World, right?
Yes.
Which would be a whole fucking different game.
I was like, Lost World, what is this?
Yeah, Lost Planet, Bill Williamson, I believe. Yeah. And he's got his own podcast, and he does other stuff. He's an actor and a producer. But, man, that was I'm pretty glowing in my review for him enough that you can tell that I was like, holy shit, this is the poignancy when it's needed, the little emotional inflections, even boredom when it needs to be bored. Just really well done.
Wow.
And I wish he did more, because I believe that he could take the place of the other guy. It's not Troy Baker. He's a tall dude. He's married to the other voice actress. Dark hair. He does Critical Hit. I think he does the D&D online.
Are you talking about? No, Matt Mercer's a part of that. Are you talking? Is he married to Laura Bailey?
Yeah, but I can't remember his name.
Yeah, I know you're talking
and Laura
about.
Bailey's also very good as well.
Yeah, she's good.
But yeah, it's just those kind of people make those characters, and a lot of times actors have a hard time, jumping into games. So you have to get a Troy Baker because he knows what is supposed to happen, and so he can deliver it. But occasionally you're like, that's Troy Baker screaming.
Yeah, for sure.
Or Far Cry, sorry, got to mention that. Far Cry 4. He was the main bad guy, and when he started talking, I'm like,
it's a primal joke.
No, it's just it's Troy Baker dressed up as a bad guy. You're like, come on, man.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Sometimes, it's good to have their natural voice, because then they can trigger different emotions in a much easier fashion. But then you start to hear too much of the voice actor, and it becomes less of the character. That happens way too much for me. Anyway, our next question comes from sleeve. They say, if joysticks are okay and steering wheels are okay, why are keyboard and mouse emulators on PS4 and Xbox considered bad?
Yeah.
That is
I thought that was a really good question.
That is. So my
what do you think?
My take on this is
well, first, do you consider them bad? Because I don't think he's saying we have to consider.
Yeah, I was going to say, I never thought they were too bad. I think there is a difference in precision, though, and being quick to aim between a controller and a mouse and keyboard. And I think, depending on the genre, that can have a bigger impact compared to... And I mean, I think you'll differ with this, because I think you told me you always use the steering wheel. And so,
yeah.
And so I was going to say... I personally, when I play racing games, and I grew up consistently on the N64, always using the steering wheel in Cruising USA. And I was always better with the controller. And that just might be the type of gamer I was. But I think there wasn't that skill gap that is created from that accessory as there is with the keyboard and mouse. So I can see why people get upset, but do I think it's a big deal? No, not really, because some people are just comfortable playing with that keyboard and mouse. So that's where I sit on it.
Yeah, and I think, too, that people may not understand the technology of it all. When you have a mouse emulator, which is what you have on a engine that's on your console, because of the standardization that's built into consoles, there's a particular frame rate they try to hit. Let's say it's 30 FPS. And so what they do is they program in that the joystick, even at 10 sensitivity, can only turn the screen at a very particular speed, which is about half the speed, if not a fourth of the speed, that a normal mouse can. Mm-hmm. So I think that while there's some fidelity added for sure, if you're using a mouse emulator, I have a Zim 4. It's not out of the box. I've had it for almost a year, but I've got one to test. I tested Attack Pro Commander, which was the official Sony one, remembering that Sony and Microsoft obviously believe it's okay because they have official products now. At least Sony does. Mm-hmm. I think there's differences, because when you go on the PC and you have a controller, well, the PC is built under its main input, which is the mouse and keyboard. So it can move much faster than any controller can. So you get that thing where you see people saying on the PC, man, you're going to get killed because you're on a gamepad. And then over here, somebody will say, you're on a console and you got a mouse, you're going to do much better. But really, you will, probably, but I don't think it'll be the same type of big jump. And I don't consider them bad for various reasons. One, I saw a huge skill jump in my steering wheel. And I've always been both gamepad, and maybe it's just the steering wheel, the fidelity, maybe they're better. Yeah. But I also believe that at some point we can't operate on the thought that everybody's equal. For example, if I have a 4K TV and it's HDR and the HDR is turned on, input rate can be anywhere from 30 to 40 milliseconds slower than somebody else's. You add that to a couple things like my receiver, my wiring, online, my connection, and I am below other people regardless of my input level. But would you say you can't buy a new router? That doesn't make a lot of sense. Would you say you can't turn on game mode on your HDR TV? That doesn't make sense. So at some point you have to just be like, hey, it's happening. Like, it's happening.
That reminds me of a time when I used to play Call of Duty competitively back in Black Ops 1. Like, they said if you want to compete, you need an MLG monitor, I think they called it. And because, like, the input delay was just, like, it was so minor that you could react quicker in a gunfight and potentially win. And it was such a minute difference that I'm sure that millisecond or two would maybe save my ass. I don't know. No, here, the reason why they say that, and the reason why people get confused a lot of times, is it's not just the TV. It's the fact that you have a circular rotation for your input signal. So you have the controller, the system itself, the game. So some games, for example, just recently, I think it was Fortnite. Yeah, Fortnite has up to 100 millisecond latency on the PS4 Pro and PS4. So people are jumping on the Xbox One because, for reasons unknown, it's at the typical 13 milliseconds, where it's just a fine refresh rate. If you have 100 on top of your TV, on top of your receiver, on top of your, and you start adding all those, then what happens is you start looking at those places where you can, if you're going to do competitive, where you can knock it down. Okay. And so I don't think one matters versus 5, because you'll see 1 millisecond, then you'll see 5 milliseconds. Great. It's what matters is if you add a bunch of those and you get the top higher end on a bunch of different items, and then suddenly you're like,
I feel a little slower than everybody else, and you always will be. And so I don't believe that you're not allowed to fix that. And I don't believe that if somebody wants a mouse and keyboard emulator, you're not allowed to use those. I don't consider them bad. And I think that Sony and Microsoft, or at least Sony for sure, also doesn't. They're allowing them. And from what I understand, Microsoft is doing a patch here very soon where mouse and keyboard will be usable.
Mm-hmm.
So people are going to have to really be prepared for that, because that would mean game engine companies will probably, a couple of faster games will probably be programmed.
One thing we always preach about on the podcast is providing players with options.
Yeah,
and so
I'm big into that.
That's the thing. Yeah, we're cool with that. So it's like, for me, yeah, like I'm a believer, if you're better at the game than me, then it doesn't matter what the fuck you're using. You're better than me. I don't care if I have the controller, you have the keyboard and mouse, or it's vice versa. If you kill me, you're better than me. And if you win that match, you're better than me. That's all there is to it. And I don't know if some gamers maybe have a little bit of an issue accepting that, if that's what it boils down to or whatever, if there's some ego involved. But for me, it's like, if you want to play that way, if that's how you succeed, or if that's how you enjoy the game, that's how you feel most comfortable. Games are about fun. So if that's what makes it more fun for you, then I don't give a fuck what you play it on. You can play it on a goddamn stick for all I care.
Yeah, if they're going to offer those options, I would say that I think a smart developer would start looking at possibly having a filter, so you could filter out control schemes in games and say, okay, awesome. I'm filtering for online. I want to play against people who are just gamepad because I have a gamepad. You couldn't say I'm a mouse and keyboard and I want to play against gamepad. That would be odd. But if you had the ability to say, I want to play with people equal to or better than me at these levels, then I should be able to do that. I don't see a problem with that at all. But it's one of those things where we're getting more technologically advanced and these things are popping up. I mean, joysticks for a lot of people are a massive increase in their proficiency just because of the way a joystick works and the fact that you're not moving your thumb A/B, you have a finger that can instantly press it.
Yeah,
that's a big difference. And in some ways, a steering wheel has some of that, and WASD in some ways is faster than moving your thumb. So I get it. But we're at a time now where there's no going back.
Yeah,
I mean, there's no going back.
We're seeing Hellblade is getting a 60 FPS mode on the PS4 Pro, but it's also getting like the action mode or whatever, which we were talking about with Neo. So yeah, we're seeing more options offered, and I think this is just kind of spawning off of that.
Yeah,
so it doesn't really surprise me at all. Great question though. Last question we have is about Fortnite. Asking Zigzag the Jerk, asks what we think about the structure of Fortnite, the pricing of it so far, all that stuff. Have you made your... I know you joked about this at the beginning, but I wasn't sure. Have you made your review for this game at all? No. Okay. Yeah, I just picked it up 2 days ago. And as for the pricing thing, I mean, this is silly. But what's the one thing I have to say is that they haven't hit it, as far as I know. They have made it very fucking obvious that this game, it is going free to play next year. Like,
right.
I feel like they have not hid that fact and tried to act like this is a AAA release. So I feel like if you have decided to purchase this game, then you know what you're getting into, hands down. What is your thoughts on this game, just as a whole so far, before we get into the pricing of the matter?
It's a mess.
It's a mess for you.
Yeah, the HUD is terrible.
Yes.
All three.
Yeah. Okay.
And the HUD, the UI is literally one of the worst. And I know that the one guy did the video. I can't remember his name, but he counted 13 fonts. 13 fonts in just the HUD. So what that usually indicates is a feature creep, like we talked about earlier, where they're putting in shit and they forgot to take some stuff out. And, you know, all the upgrades, upgrade this, upgrade that, do this, do that. There's a lot of stuff going on in places that don't make a lot of sense. And I think that stuff could be fixed. The actual gameplay itself is somewhat fun, but I think what bothers people about the pricing is the fact that not only are they weird, it's like 40, 60, or 150, or like 250 for this Ultimate Edition, if I remember correctly, but the fact that it's the reverse of early access, which is where you pay a little less and then everybody else is going to pay full price when it goes live. Instead here, it's going to pay a bunch and no one's going to pay unless they choose to later, and it feels a little odd. And some people aren't mad, some people are, and I get why both feel weird about it. They have not hidden the fact it'll be free to play, but what they have done is some really shady shit. For example, it doesn't tell you it costs anything if you try to download it on the console. But if you try to play it on the console, it then says, please pay. That's weird for like even bandwidth caps, going so far as to be technical and saying, I don't want to download 30 gigs thinking a game's free and it has money. And maybe the warning's there now, but it was not there because we tested that. I have that on video. It was not there at that time.
Okay.
So there's little oddities, I think, that are going on. I think there's enough oddities, and the game has enough UI issues that for me, it's so early access, I'm sort of shocked they're asking for any money. But that's just me.
Yeah. No, I for starters, I totally agree with the UI. Navigating those fucking menus initially, trying to figure out where everything is.
It's insane.
It's just everything. It's so scattered. Trying to figure out all the mechanics. I don't think they do a good job explaining that to you. I have to say, I do kind of enjoy the mindless gameplay loop of it all, of the scavenge, build, defend. I know that's not everyone's cup of tea, but I think it's about time we saw a bit of the Minecraft formula try to take a step forward from the building part and do something with it, rather than just so many games trying to tell you to mine resources and build. What can you do past that? And I like the whole create your own weapons. And I mean, it of course takes the whole loot pack thing from every game now. So you break a pinata, you get a ton of fucking weapons and survivors that you can send on different missions and stuff while you're busy doing another one. It's definitely a time sink kind of game. And one thing I have to say I like about it is that it's not like it's a mission structure game. So for those who haven't played, you invite your friends to your party if you're going to play online with any friends. You pick a mission from the mission select menu, you drop into this world space, and from there you start collecting resources. Now you'll have your resources from your previous mission, and when you use up all your resources during that mission, it will go into the next mission. So what I really like about this is that it makes you not blow your load in an entire mission, because you have to think about that next mission and the mission after that. And while you can collect as much as you want, certain world spaces will have certain resources that you'll find like that compared to different world spaces. And that's one thing I really like, is because it's not just, okay, we're resetting you, drop in here, mine all the stuff and use everything you got. You have to be smart with it, because when you're building this fortress, you might be short on stuff. And in fact, I like the challenges they present, such as don't build more than 30 parts and you'll get a bonus at the end, which will unlock more loot and upgrade, or rather you get loot no matter what. It upgrades the rank of your loot. So I like that type of stuff, I can't lie. I hope it evolves a little bit more. I'm looking forward to seeing how they update the game. And by that, I mean that, like, for example, just building walls, floors, ceilings, and some traps.
Right, yeah.
I have to say it because it's the most best thing to compare it to, but I think Fallout 4 Settlement had more options to create and build with. And that's, for all that's wrong with Fallout 4, we can say it's a much bigger game than Fortnite. So if a game about building has less assets to build with than a game that had more exploration and places to discover and stuff, then what's the game about building doing? And so that's why I'm assuming, or at least hoping, that every month we're going to get a slew of new guns and new traps and new things to build with to keep the player hopefully coming back. If that's not the case, that's when I'll start to get really pissed off, because that's when I think, okay, you're asking for my money up front. I bought this with the purpose of reviewing. But let's say as a consumer, okay, I'm putting my money into your game. I want to see constant return, especially if it's fucking early access. I want to see it coming my way the whole time.
It's weird to see early access now in retail stores too. Dreamcast guy did the video where he walked to Walmart, and Walmart has the huge kiosk for Fortnite in it. And this is an early access game, not completed. We saw 7 Days to Die. The console we saw the console version of that come out, and it was actually a lower version number than the PC, which was still early access, and they were selling that as a complete game. We're starting to see this a lot, and I can see why some people are bothered by it. I would say, to me, this is my version of Rainbow Six Siege, but instead of me liking it, I'm like the other people who were like, it's not really for me. And so maybe when they upgrade it and improve it, I'll be the person who turns around and says, oh wow, this is a better game than on launch. But for me right now, there wasn't anything fun about it. Like, that's what was weird, is I got in with some friends, we had an okay time, but it wasn't a time where all of these other oddities didn't bother me anymore. which I think is how you want usually things to work out, which is where it's like, okay, we got some roughness here, but here's our, and I was just, for a little while, I was like, oh, wow. And then it just dived. And I think also Dreamcast guy, again, if you guys get a chance, I know Maddie's seen him before. He's another YouTuber. He did a review. Some people don't like some of the ways he said certain things about the game, and I totally get that. But he covered the fact that the weapons just degrade and you can't repair them. And so it's a constant loop of either grinding materials or buying into those. And I could, you know, if Maddie called me tonight and said, hey, we're going to play, and I looked at my guns and I was like, oh shit, this gun's going to break. I can spend 8 hours grinding or $1 buying the gun. I don't know, man. We'll have to see how that all works, because it feels like a Pavlov's dog kind of thing, where they're like, we'll just ring the bell a little bit and hope Karak purchases the horse armor. So a little nervous about those.
You're right. And I've only put about an hour and a half into it. So these are really more initial impressions for me.
Same with me. Yeah.
And so I could
be wrong.
I definitely gotta, well, it's not even that I have to see more of that repair system, because what you just said, didn't even know about that. Didn't know that my shit broke. I thought once I built it, I upgraded it, I thought it was there to stay.
No, they go away.
That's
and
hilarious.
He's got some, and
all those pre-order items they promote, all these weapon packs they promote that you get can fucking break. That's amazing.
Yeah,
That's
and
so
I don't know
funny.
if it's everything or if it's just the weapons. Because I think schematics are used the moment you play you build them, if I remember right. But he had some really good points, and some points that no one's really arguing. They're just like, you know, it's one of those situations where it's Zelda all over again. Like Graham Cracker World, are you okay with that? And in Zelda I am, even though I don't like it, but I'm more okay with that because there's no option to purchase out of it.
Yeah.
When that option to purchase out of it comes up, then I need to look at like the fairness of the grind rate, which is a huge deal. Like what's the grind rate for somebody to get a gun, you know, or to do this thing. So, and I could be wrong on a lot of that too. Well, I'm not wrong on that stuff because, I mean, people played it and said it. But what I mean is I could be wrong in my assumptions. And once I play it, go, you know what? That's okay. Because you're going to be, you know, it just won't matter. But it is weird when you have a gun. But, you know, I feel this way. I don't like durability in games. I'm sorry. I mean, I've shot guns. I have guns that are fucking from 1816 and shit. And they fucking still shoot. So it's like, right? You're not going to have a sword fall apart after 5 hits. I love Dead Island, but I hated that in Dead Island. You know, a crowbar that fell apart after, 2 or 3 zombie hits. It has to make sense, man. And Fortnite could have been better having the durability and all that stuff built just around forts. Yeah. Like do that around those, and then
they do have that, but it's like, why put that around the weapons?
Exactly.
Especially because it takes a lot to make them. That's I mean, I get the idea of on paper durability in gameplay sounds good because it's this additional gameplay tension where, you know, your favorite weapon, you better get a repair kit fast. But when it disappears permanently, that's when it's like, why did I work for that when it was just going to go away no matter what? You know, going into something knowing it's going to be gone, like what entices the player about that? A temporary satisfaction? Like, no, it's...
Yeah, it's going to be odd to see how it sort of rolls out for people who want to, and there's different types of gamers. There's like, is it you and I where we jump in, maybe we're not going to be able to return to it, so we're going to play it for 40 to 60 hours and then not return too often? Is it going to be people who play 1 hour a week, like Overwatch, like you used to do, where it's like, okay, I'm playing this night? Is it going to be somebody who is going to wait till a bunch of content's out and get it for free and then look at the purchasing? It's an odd game in that way. And I think the oddity is unfortunately magnified by the UI and the complexity and just the weird, as Reg, one of the guys said, he was like, it's like every good idea and bad idea they didn't remove, they just left in.
And then they'll just fix it all after.
Yeah, and you're like, you can upgrade this, but this, and I even had somebody tell me a big news, which I didn't know. They're like, some upgrade they were talking about, they were like, no, don't upgrade your schematic too far because it'll go past where you can build it because the items you need you can't get. And I saw like 80 responses going, oh fuck. And some people say, well, those people are stupid, they didn't see it, or there was a warning, whatever. But the fact is, if there's that many people, again, usually that's HUD confusion. and a UI confusion issue.
Absolutely.
There's too much data.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I can attest to all of that personally. Yeah, it's.
What did you think about the look, Maddie? Did you like the look, the cartoon look?
Yes. Yeah, I like that. I have to say, it's going to be interesting because what's going to happen with this game is they're getting their money now for the title. And I'm imagining they're going to reinvest into the game, make it really good, and then they're going to have this full game that goes free to play that really wasn't really a free to play game. But when it launches and it's accessible to all players, it's going to be the best version of the game at that time. And then people are going to come in for the first time. It's fucking awesome. And buy the microtransactions that are in there.
Yeah.
It's like,
that's going to be a fucking weird situation.
Like, what?
It is reversed. If you look at early access,
Yeah.
it is exact. And in a way, I sort of like their idea. Like, I like their idea, which is to see if the opposite works. If,
let's see how fucking dumb we can.
Well, yeah. I mean, it depends on what they give the gamer. Like, if you tell me a game's coming free, Star Wars, which we both played, that was paid and then also free, and now it's paid and free, depending on what you want to do, right? And I don't really like their free because you have to pay to fucking adjust like toolbars in that game. Like it's UI that you're paying for. But if they do it intelligently and they really reward people who pay up front, not just in gameplay, but they really reward them, then I'd be totally fine with that. I just haven't seen it yet. All I've seen is that it does cost money and it seems to be fairly chunky. Yeah. Earliest access, I guess. You know, it's a little early.
That's the thing. Yeah, earliest access is the best way of putting it because for a, early access game looks fine. For me, and when I say look, I mean graphically. Now I'm playing on PS4. Runs fine. I haven't had any frame rate dips or anything. Plays fine. You know, it's a functioning game. You know, it's like, and because I just played a game that I'm going to be uploading on the channel in a couple of days, Citadel Forged with Fire. That's fucking early access. You know, you can see when I think early access, I see a game that you can look at, see the potential and go, whoa, this could be really good, but it's pretty feature barren.
Is that an MMO?
Kind of, yeah, like a sandbox RPG. $20 Steam early access right now.
Right.
It's
Well,
like
what do you?
Skyrim meets Harry Potter.
Yeah, I was gonna say. Yeah, I don't want to. I got some codes here. I'll probably give away because I didn't get a chance to jump in. So without giving away, I thought it looked interesting because I liked the idea of the Harry Potter kind of world. Was that part of it?
Cool? I mean, I don't mind because we're at the end of the show. The most loyal listeners stay. The most loyal listeners stay this long. They deserve the reward. I say in
there you go.
But yeah, so for me, when it came to Citadel, I felt that the ideas up front for it were good because what happened was as I was playing this game, I was discovering for myself there's really no tutorials because once you spawn, there's some like knowledge stones, and when you look at them, they'll give you tips like press I to open your inventory, press K to open your skill section. All that stuff. And from there, you pick up a stick and you'll get 10 XP. And then you'll pick up like a rock, you'll get 10 XP. So you get XP by looting the environment, which I've never seen before. And then you level up. And you're like, okay, well, now what? So you go to your skills. Oh, if I pick the wands, I can take that rune stone I found and that piece of wood I found and make a wand that I can shoot spells out of. Oh, I can spend this skill point on this spell. I'll attach it to my wand. Now I can shoot more spells out of my wand. It's a lot of resource management, so you can tell it's a fucking early access game. So you can find yellow vines. You take those, you turn them into cloth. You take that cloth, you make cloth armor. Yeah, and then there's enemy camps. There's caves to explore. Right. It's a very, it's intriguing because, like I said, you were discovering it on your own. The game wasn't telling you. So while it was this standard run-of-the-mill early access shit that I can't stand of collecting and crafting, it was more intriguing because I was figuring out on my own. And then I realized what they're going for with this game because it's supposed to be sandbox, so the fun is kind of made dynamically. And so there was this one point in the video I'm uploading where I walk up to this guy's house because there's a building mode. You just press B and you take from your resources. You can build whatever. And right now it doesn't serve more of a purpose other than building. because you're not really defending from anything. I think you can use your homes as like a place to recharge your mana and your health and stuff, amongst other things. So that could be useful. But when I sat down and looked at this guy's house, his name was Burnt Cheese, and I was like, who the fuck is Burnt Cheese? Oh, I can't get into his house. Whatever, it's stupid anyway. Then I turn around. He's standing right there looking at me. He's like, you could tell he was like, what the fuck's this guy doing at my house? And so then, like, you know, I step off, and he like drops some stones in front of me, and I'm like, oh, so is he like just being a nice guy? So I take these stones, and then he runs out into the wild. So I'm level 3, he's level 12. I'm like, let me see what's gonna happen here. So he runs into this dangerous area. I'm piggybacking him, and we're like, he's taking out these level 12 orcs. I'm helping him I say that in air quotes. I'm helping him. I'm really doing minimal damage, but I'm fucking piggybacking him and gaining XP from all this crap, and I'm leveling up and collecting all these resources. Then things start getting hairy. He gets triple teamed, and I'm like, oh, I'm out of here. And you know, that was the most fun I had, was in this dynamic moment where I literally used this guy. He gave me his stuff. I took it. I helped him out to the best of my abilities. But once he was getting swarmed and about to die, what can I do? I'm 9 levels lower than him, or 8 levels lower than him. So what am I supposed to do? So I'm like, I gotta run now. So I run away, and I take all the resources I got. I'm like, I'm just building shit now. And so, like I said, it was that dynamic nature of the game that was really fun. So when I wrapped it up, I was like, yeah, I could see where this game can be fun. You know, I wish they had kind of like an initial tutorial or some type of quest that gets you more XP, because I feel like it's the most jarring thing to find out that the first thing that levels you up is scooping a fucking stick up off the ground. Really weird. And especially because the enemies you encounter at first are level 3 and 4, and they'll fucking kill you unless you level up to at least level 2 or 3, which I think kind of stagnates the gameplay. And there was no NPCs to interact with, no questing, just straight exploration and sandbox fun. So
instead of survival horror, we'll call it survival Harry for Harry Potter. Survival Harry.
Yeah. So it's definitely it's got some promise, I'd say. One of the few early access titles that I was like, you know, this is fun. Yeah, and so I got to say I liked it. Yeah, it was good.
That's cool. That's very cool. I was actually very interested in it. I just didn't get a chance to check it out in time. But the idea of if they do it right, the idea of an MMO in a Harry Potter world, I would absolutely.
If I hit level 10, I could build a broom and fucking fly it around. Like that
I know in
level
the
of Harry
videos
Potter.
they showed. Did you see the videos?
Yeah.
See, and that's the thing. I thought there would be NPCs and stuff, which would have. I really think they probably should have waited.
Initial exploration, I went to a couple of outposts in different quadrants of the world, and there was nothing. It just unlocked fast travel to that area.
They showed this video, and the fucking broom like scenes and different little parts they showed. I was like, oh my god, because it was traveling at a good clip, which I'm going to be honest, most MMOs, due to how they stream their worlds, never really travel very fast. And so he was like on his broom on treetops in the video, and I was like, what the fuck? That's an MMO? I am going to be with my friends flying across the game world. Like, this is going to be the shit.
Exactly,
so maybe I'll wait.
That's one thing. That's, because one of the weird things that you say that I think of is that I've never played in an MMO setting where I felt like I was in a single-player world. And that game actually, I felt like I was in a single-player world. Obviously, I was playing by myself, so that's partially why. But normally, you'll see a bunch of NPCs standing around, players doing stupid shit. But, like, the feeling of my first human encounter not being the NPC who's saying, like, greetings, traveler, and getting you XP, but another human.
Reform,
and seeing what that would do was, like, as rewarding as any quest in its own right. It's just how long would I carry on for? So, yeah, the game has potential, and it's definitely got its, I wouldn't say unique set of things, but it makes smart usage of what it's taking inspiration from.
That's very cool. Yeah, I'll definitely check it out. When's the video popping for that?
I'm thinking Tuesday. It's short download too, so if you got free time, quick download.
No. I meant your video.
No, I'm talking. Yeah, I'm saying for the game though. If you have the code and you wanted to try it, really quick download.
When's your video coming out though? That you're covering it in Tuesday. Okay, I'll check that out. I'll check it out before I download it, because I could, if I don't see the fun you see, I'll just give the codes away. But what I like the idea of that freeform human stuff. It's my first experience with an MMO was freeform like that, and I think that's what got me into MMOs, because it wasn't just, what would the term be, quest after quest after quest from NPCs, like most. So
Yeah.
What's it called? Forged in
Citadel Forged with Fire.
Forged with Fire.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Really interesting title. Definitely one that I think for those who are into early access games, because there are people who just play a lot of those. It's one of the few early access titles I've said keep your eye on. If you're listening to this and you're thinking about spending $20 on it, wait. But if you are intrigued, keep your eye on it, because I think after a few updates, this game will be something worth really looking into.
That's very cool.
Yeah, but that'll do it for the show. We got all our news done. Very, very good episode. We are such fucking chatterboxes. There's two of us, and we still managed to carry this on almost 2 hours.
we always will.
Yeah.
Like, that's one of the reasons why I like doing them, because it's just fun. It's fun to yak and talk about games, get other people's ideas. Speaking of that, I wanted to say Go Burns. He's a YouTuber. I'll send Maddie the link, but he's doing a walkthrough of the Mafia 3 DLC right now.
Okay.
And he's sort of one of their not official channels, but he's he knows them. It's the guy I mentioned last podcast with Lone when we were talking about the possibility of BioShock and what they're working on. But he's doing something awesome in his Let's Plays and covering that. It's very cool. But yeah, I mean, that's the thing is there's enough cool people for us to talk to that, and we get them on but if it's just you and hell, we could always fucking back out and start talking about KOTOR.
Yeah.
We could spend two entire hours.
Right. How long can we talk about Knights of the Old Republic?
If somebody said, I challenge you to talk, and I mean this, I want to know your honest opinion. If somebody said, Karak and Maddie get a break, of course, they'd sit down and talk for a solid 4 hours of substantive KOTOR discussion, 1 and 2.
Oh my God.
Could you do it? And I would say within a second.
Yeah. Yeah.
And make it fun.
Oh,
yeah, we are chatterbox.
We literally probably just go in order of planet to planet, narrative structure, characters, gameplay.
Okay, there we go.
Yeah.
We'll end it on favorite planet in KOTOR 1. What's your favorite planet?
Manon.
Yep. See, that's a problem, though. We do agree. That is the problem, because occasionally we do agree too much because we like the same things.
Korriban could be close second.
Really?
Yeah.
Korriban.
Yeah.
Do you know the one that bothers me a little bit? And I love Tarsus. The first place, Taris.
Okay.
And I know a lot of people don't. They mod it out. But
what? I love Taris.
Kashyyyk sort of bothers me, or Kashyyyk or Kashyyyk, the Wookiee planet.
Yeah,
the Shadowlands.
I liked Kashyyyk. The one I don't like is I don't like the it's the Dantooine area. It's just it's so slow, really, compared to the rest of the game. And it's exciting for a first timer and a second time through because you're doing whatever opposite playthrough. But when you're playing it again for the fucking 100th time, I love how I say it like that. God, this game is getting annoying after 100 times. But really, it's more so just that that section is clearly weaker than everything else in the game, I feel.
I actually agree with that. Yeah, for sure. What about the second one?
Second one, favorite planet. Ooh, Duxon.
Mine's the Mysterious.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And I guess even 1 has one, doesn't it? No, does 1 have one as well?
One does have the Mysterious planet. And then, I actually forgot the name of it.
Wait a minute. Maybe I messed up, and 1 is the one with the Mysterious planet.
1 is the one with the Mysterious planet. I thought you were talking about Malachor 5.
Sorry. Oh.
I thought that's what you were talking about.
No. Oh, man. Mysterious planet. I don't know why I like that planet so much. But
are we talking about 1 or 2 now?
1.
Okay.
I want to jump back real quick.
Yeah. 1, probably because you can, if you're doing an evil playthrough, you can literally fuck everything up.
I think that's why I like it, to be honest. But it was also a surprise. I didn't expect to go there. I was like, what are we,
true.
What's happening? And then you land on this paradise sort of looking planet,
at least.
And I was like, yeah, dude. Oh, dude. And it's end game. That's how much I like it. I love the fact that it's in-game content that adds something completely new. It's not where you feel like you're on the downward slope. It's where you're on an upward slope of new content. And you're like, what the fuck? More?
Amazing.
Yeah, very cool. I guess with 2, I know you love it. I wasn't a huge fan. But 2, the industrial planet where you meet Godo, or where... it's not the Hutties.
Nar Shaddaa. Yeah.
Nar Shaddaa, yeah. I like the stuff that happens with Kara or Kira, whatever the fuck. And her, like, some of the stuff she says to you and some of the things you start to figure out on that planet, but not a lot of that stuck with me as much as number one.
For me, it's Onderon. Onderon didn't stick with me all too much. The initial murder mystery and stuff, that was the one that I on KOTOR 2 that I was like, this is cool. I like the political situation here, but like my friend brought it up in a conversation. I'm like, dude, I know I preach how much I love this series, but fuck, I don't remember anything from that planet right now.
That happens. Yeah. No, I get it. Your brain just sort of goes into autopilot.
Yeah. And that's exactly what happened for that segment. I'm just like, nope, just can't even. If you told me to break down that planet, I could tell you ducks in the planet before that, but Onderon, nothing.
That's weird. That's weird.
Yeah. All right, this should have been the week we did it. Fuck, we fucked up. This should have been the week we done the KOTOR thing. Because Lone's not here.
Yeah.
We'll throw him off for a week.
No, we'll do it with Lone here. We'll be like, listen, bitch, you're just going to sit down. He keeps skipping out on us. I'll tell you, the life and times of a kangaroo.
Yeah.
They must be terrible. I'm just joking, Lone.
He's hopping out on us.
Yeah, he's hopping out on us. It sounds like hopping out. It's like a fucking cheating kangaroo. He's in the middle of the night. The dude's hopping out on us, sleeping with other kangaroos. He probably would not enjoy sitting there talking about it. But it is funny. I'm always surprised at some of the games he has and hasn't played too. Like when we'll be talking,
we just need to get Rachel to tell him what games to play, because then he'll listen.
Apparently, like she can tell him, and he'll be like, "Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am."
Yeah, because we're like, "Yeah, Lone, Nier's good. Nier's really fucking good." Okay, guys, yep, that's great. And then fucking Rachel, Nier's pretty good. All right, I bought it. You know, it's like, what the fuck? You what? After 4 fucking months, you what?
Yeah, that's awesome.
Anyway, this is a great episode. If you listen this far, use the hashtag hopping out. Tweet at Karak and I. Our handles are on screen. And Karak, thank you for joining me for such a lovely discussion.
Yeah, as always, total blast, man. Good way to start a Friday.
Hell yeah. It's going to be a good weekend. So thank you guys so much for listening, and we will catch you in next week's episode.
Peace out.
Peace.